Hello, my name is Mike Vinsel. This is Vinsel School of English Story Time. So today we're going to start in on this one. This is the illustrated story of Stephen Stroh. So, and so this story was the first one I actually wrote, and so kind of the story of that is I'll explain. It's in the preface here. Okay. So here's the preface. The evolution of this book began in 2013. That summer, my wife Shizuka and I had taken our nieces and nephews to see the summer sumo tournament in Nagoya. It is held there every July. We were fans of the Yokozuna Harumafuji. Beside us was sitting a woman who was also a fan of Harumafuji. She spoke English well, and we struck up a conversation. At the end of the day, we went our separate ways. Then a few days later, I received a book in the mail. I had not ordered any books and was surprised when I opened it that it was a self-published book of drawings of Harumafuji, covering every match he'd been in. The illustrations were wonderful. It was from the woman who'd sat next to us at the sumo tournament. She'd written and illustrated the book. I needed to respond. I had once had some artistic talent, but had neglected it over the years. I decided I would draw a picture of our neighborhood and use it to make a card to send to our new friend. I was pleased at how my picture turned out and sent it off in the mail. After that, I started making drawings from memory of scenes that had happened in my life, going back as far as I could remember. I made scans of them and posted them on Facebook. Many of my friends who remembered the scenes commented on my pictures. I wanted to string the scenes along in a narrative that might ultimately lead up to the present, something like a memoir. The pictures came first. I see them as the music and the story as the lyrics. This is the first volume of what I hope to be a series. The events depicted all happened in one form or another. The characters are based on real people, but the words they say are words I've given them. The illustrations don't have captions. They are meant to reflect the broader mood of the particular scenes rather than precise details. So I want to acknowledge the help of Cami Riccelli, who proofread my manuscript with patience and kindness. She gave me much good advice and encouragement. That said, I made my own corrections and rewrites for which she bears no responsibility. I'm solely to blame for any errors. I hope readers will be forgiving. Okay, so anyway, now we're going to start with chapter 1. So the chapters are pretty long here. This is a 45-page chapter. So I'm going to probably break it up into sections that will be maybe 20 minutes long, and then I'll give you a break. Okay. Anyway, here we go. This is the opening scene here. So this would be a view of Tokyo and Mount Fuji in the distance, and this would be the view from the Tokyo Sky Tree, which was, it's a new building, very tall, and or relatively new, anyway. Okay, here we go. Chapter 1, the illustrated story of Stephen Stroh. Chapter 1, the interview. After an early dinner on his 53rd birthday, Stephen Stroh stood with Fusako on the observation deck of Tokyo Sky Tree. 2 weeks before, a checkup had shown albumin in her urine. They had come to Tokyo for follow-up tests. The tests had been done in the afternoon, and there was nothing left to do but await diagnosis. They decided to go to the Sky Tree to make the most of what was, after all, Stephen's birthday. Standing with her beside him, he recalled the far-off memory of his mother pointing out to him the smell of tomato seedlings. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Fusako, his wife, said. "The view? Yes, it is. When I was younger, I was afraid of what would become of me, in life, I mean," he said. "What would become of you?" she asked. My parents had always said that before you can consider marriage, you have to be a good provider. I knew I'd never be able to fit into a regular job. I never did well in school, and I had figured that failure in school indicated that I'd never do well in life, he said. They looked out at the sprawling city glitter coming on, the cone of Mount Fuji darkening against the last orange glow of sunset, and he remembered the orchard. "You've been just fine," said Fusako. "I'm lucky I found my niche." "Lucky I found you," Stephen said. Fusako took Stephen's hand. He stared out to Mount Fuji, its gentle slope and symmetry almost hypnotic. He stood, conscious, not asleep, but deep in thought. His mind wandered further and further from the present and into the past. He drifted into a memory as vivid as going back in time. It was just 1 year, long ago, but it occurred to Stephen that the memories of that year had served him well throughout his life, providing guidance and solace in times of trouble, much the way a holy book would do for others. It was the year Stephen turned 20 years old. "Today's the day," Stephen said to himself, climbing the packing house steps of Rockmount Orchards. "I'm gonna get this, gonna get this, gonna get this job," he chanted, eyes closed, a gloved hand on the steel railing. The January sun reflected off the white clapboard facade and glowed orange through his closed eyelids. Tiny pellets of calcium chloride de-icer crunched beneath his boots on the concrete steps. A memory flashed in his mind. High school yearbook, senior superlatives, derisive laughter aimed at him. But that's over now. He kept his eyes closed, imagining what it would be like to be blind. He reached for the doorknob where he'd expected it would be, and there it was. He opened the door and stepped into the packing house, scraped his boots on the bristled doormat, closed the door behind him, and opened his eyes. His shadow stretched long on the worn pink floor as he appraised the scene before him. And here's the picture that goes with that. That's the packing house of the apple orchard, Rockmount Orchards. Women stood at work stalls bagging and boxing apples from wooden bins about 4 feet square, 3 feet tall. Stephen read on a bin, "Rockmount Orchards, New Dartford, New Hampshire, 15 bushels." He watched the lady nearest him. She looked to be in her 50s, with dyed yellow hair and thick pink makeup. A small radio at her stall quietly played country music, but Stephen didn't know the song. She leaned over an almost half-full bin, her right hand feeling for the apples. Grabbing one, she gave it a quick glance, passed it to her left hand, which then reached behind and dropped the apple into a clear plastic bag suspended from tines on a scale. After maybe 15 seconds, the bag was full. She turned toward the scale, twisted the bag closed, sealed it in the slot of a tape dispenser. She then pivoted gracefully on the ball of her foot, as in a dance, slid the bag into one of 6 chambers of a corrugated cardboard box with the orchard logo on its face, turned back to the scale, pulled a new plastic bag from the roll, slid it onto the tines, and returned to the bin. Stephen noticed that the process of filling one bag had taken hardly more time than he had taken to wipe his boots on the doormat. He was confident that no one would have thought he'd been staring. But then it struck him. The lady worked to the rhythm of the country music. An apple dropped into the bag with each beat of the song. It's a dance. How wonderful, he thought to himself. The room appeared dark, despite the white painted walls and shafts of sunlight that glared through ancient dusty windows. Stephen's first impression was that it was very peaceful. It smelled of apples, wood, and coffee. Theodore Castro waited in his office. Stephen had talked to him on the phone when he'd arranged the job interview and knew that Mr. Castro would be expecting him. He knocked gently on the office door. "Come in," said Mr. Castro. Stephen went in and closed the door behind him. Mr. Castro looked up from a worn United States Geological Survey topographical map on his desk and lowered his wire-rimmed glasses to look at Stephen. "You're Mr. Stroh, I take it?" "That's right, Stephen Stroh," said Stephen. "I'm Ted Castro," Mr. Castro said as he stood up to shake hands with Stephen. "So you'd like a job here, is that right?" Mr. Castro asked. "Yes, that's right," Stephen answered, noticing that he was taller than the boss. Ted Castro gestured for Stephen to sit down in a chair beside the table, then walked to the window and stared outside into the snow glare. "Well, Mr. Stephen Stroh, of all the throng of highly qualified people with impeccable resumes knocking at my door, what particular qualifications do you have that would make you best suited to a position at Rockmount Orchards?" Mr. Castro asked. Stephen paused to choose his words carefully. No particular qualifications came to mind, but he had to answer the question. So he decided to simply tell the truth, and if that lost him the job, then so be it. "I don't know much about growing apples, but I like growing plants. I've always liked gardening. We have a big garden at home. My mother grows lots of flowers and things, and vegetables too. She has this set of gardening encyclopedias, and lots of other gardening books. I know that apples are native to Central Asia." Stephen tried to think of more to say. He continued, "My mother and our neighbor, Mrs. Melrose, also taught me a lot about gardening. I know that limestone raises the pH, and that helps make nutrients in the soil available to the plants." He worried that he had talked too much and realized that he might have appeared nervous. Mr. Castro walked slowly back to his green swivel chair, sat down, and with finger and thumb twisted an end of his silver handlebar mustache. Then he slid his spectacles back up the bridge of his nose with his middle finger. He turned to the topographical map. "Central Asia. That is indeed impressive," he said. Stephen wasn't sure if Mr. Castro was being sarcastic. He looked around the office to a plywood panel painted green, with pegs from which hung many sets of keys, probably to trucks and tractors, Stephen guessed. Then he noticed a set of 10 yellowed black and white photographs tacked side by side on the wall beside Ted Castro's desk. He wanted to look at them more closely, but didn't think it would be appropriate for him to do that. But he could see that they were pictures of some kind of disaster. Ted Castro swiveled in his chair to face Stephen and removed his glasses. Stephen looked back at his future boss. Mr. Castro's lips were pursed, the corners of his mouth slightly turned upward. Was he smiling? Stephen couldn't tell. He tried to figure how old Mr. Castro was. Maybe in his 60s, or maybe late 50s, or maybe even 70. Stephen couldn't tell how old the man was, but he could see that Mr. Castro was very wise, and Stephen wanted to make a good impression. Stephen wanted the job. He waited nervously for the follow-up questions. He was surprised when the next question was, "When would you like to start?" "Monday morning," Stephen replied. Ted Castro smiled and leaned back in his chair with a slight beam in his eye. Said, "I'll see you Monday morning at 7. So that's it. I got the job, Stephen thought to himself. "Thank you, Mr. Castro. I'll see you Monday morning. You won't regret hiring me, I promise," he said. "Indeed, I don't think I'll regret hiring you," Mr. Castro said. Then he smiled and cracked his knuckles. Before you go, are you interested in knowing the terms of employment? He asked. Oh, that's right. I guess I was a little excited there. Yes, I need to know the terms of employment. Ted Castro stood up and strode across the room as he began to speak. The rate of pay is $3.25 an hour. Work days are Monday through Friday. Work hours are 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Lunch break is 30 minutes, from 12 noon to 12:30. There are two 15-minute coffee breaks, one at 9:30 and one at 2:30. He paused. You following all this? Stephen nodded. Ted Castro continued. Lunch break is not paid. The two coffee breaks are paid, so each day you will be paid for 9 hours work. Each full week will be 45 hours. That means there are 5 hours of overtime every week. Farm work is exempt from minimum wage and overtime requirements. It will be straight rate, not time and a half for the overtime. Do you understand that? Yes, I do, Stephen said. He had not known that overtime was paid time and a half at other jobs. Ted Castro continued. We provide Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance free of charge to all of our employees. He spread several papers on the table for Stephen to fill out and sign. Another thing I must tell you. For a week or two in the spring, during blossom time, we begin work at 9 p.m. and work through the night moving beehives. You can expect to be done with that by 4 a.m. In the harvest season, we work 7 days a week, often as late as 10 o'clock at night. That's usually all of September and October. Stephen said, that won't be a problem, resisting the temptation to add, sir. Stephen signed the papers and shook hands with Ted Castro once more. Welcome to Rockmount Orchards, Ted Castro said. Okay, we'll take a break here.